Hey, Wolfgang, thanks for coming.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell me about how you got into photography.
Um, it was actually quite early that I started to want to become a photographer. I was actually 13 years old, and with my best friend, we started to, out of a nostalgia, use old cameras, and also I think like some kind of nostalgic feeling, we wanted to shoot black and white. But back in the days, developing black and white film was quite expensive because it wasn't common anymore.
Mm.
And so my mother actually for Christmas got me the old darkroom equipment from my grandmother. She was a chemist, and for some, I don't know, analytical processes, they needed the darkroom. And so I could develop and make and print the photographs in the darkroom myself, which was super cheap. So from that moment on, it was just not a matter of money to do black and white photography, and with the darkroom, I had my first experiences with like professional or like artistic photography. And also, my mother was the person who 2 years later um, told me about there's a photography school in Vienna that you can visit. It's for 5 years, and asked me if I wanted to see like to see the school and see if I would want to go there. And yes, so for the next 5 years, I went to a photography school in Vienna. Was actually traveling every day, 1.5 hours from my hometown to Vienna to the school, and 1.5 hours back for 5 years. It's quite a lot of time, but obviously I didn't have the money or to have a flat in Vienna at the age of 15. Um, so in this school, I really learned the full course of photography, like professional fashion product and documentary photography, darkroom every day. And I was really lucky that in the first 3 years of this 5 years education, I learned to work with analog photography, with film and darkroom, quite extensively. And the last 2 years, there was this switch to digital photography. So I also learned digital as well. So I had the opportunity that I was actually one of the last people who learned both worlds, the film photography and also the digital. And this was, yeah, this and I finished the school becoming, like, call it something like a master of photography. And from this day on, I was working as a photographer. I had some steps directly after school in between. I was doing a lot of film. I was learning in school as well film, and so we graduated with a 16 millimeter short film. And also after school, I worked a lot for film production companies, made the whole career from production assistant, unit manager, assistant director, up to producer. And which was really good to just get like this professional work ethics, and learn how to do commercial jobs, which helped me get into commercial photography, which until today still pays most of my bills, because it's like really, it just brings decent money and gives me the freedom to go to Morocco and go to India or go wherever to do my personal work.
Cool. What would you say is the benefit of film? Well, I guess two questions. Why were you drawn so much toward film, shooting film? And then what would you say, what benefit did you find in that versus digital?
Actually, when I started photography, there was no digital photography. It was only film. It was just, yeah, it
Right.
was invented
Okay.
probably, but it wasn't available. It was the first consumer cameras were available when I was already in photography school for 3 years. So
Oh,
there was no choice. It was just like how it is. Um,
so
but
what made you
generally,
choose black and white?
I think
Just
this
the
was some
stylistic
kind
choice.
of nostalgic, I don't know, like to have this this feel, and I like the contrast, and yeah, I think it was just cool in a way, and it out of the ordinary, I guess, in a way.
That makes sense.
And also you can work in a dark room on black and white. You can do this because it's only taking like two chemicals and water. But on color photography, you need actually at least 7 chemicals. It's really complicated, and you cannot do it like this. You need a big machine and stuff. So this was, I think, the main reasons. I liked it, and also there was no other choice doing it myself. And bringing it to the lab every day, every time I wanted to shoot a film, it was just too expensive at that time.
Got it. I want to talk about this silicone-based creatures series. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How you started with that?
Yeah, this project I discovered more than I like planned to do it. So on my first trip to Morocco, I was actually planning or thinking I would do a similar photography I did like in India or somewhere else, where I would just do portraits of the people in their working environment or of the landscape and buildings, so just the country. But I quickly learned that in an Arabic country, it's much more difficult to make portraits of people because, for one reason, in Islamic culture, it's not people don't really. In a deep sense, it's forbidden to take photos in Islamic culture. Pictures themselves are forbidden, as it used to be in Christian culture as well, hundreds of years ago. But in the Islamic culture, it's still more present. And so people are not easily willing to have their photo taken. And also in more touristic areas, they would just hold their hand for some money if you want to take their photo. So it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like people would appreciate or really want to connect to take that photo. So after some days, I decided I have to go to the countryside, and I took a driver and a jeep, and we went for a 5-day desert trip. And actually, on the last morning of this trip, on the day I had to go to the airport again. I was in Ouarzazate, which is it's in the eastern part of Morocco, where the real desert, the sand dunes start. And in the first morning light, I was walking up the dunes, and I saw what the sand in the air moved by the wind did. And I started to experiment a little bit with the throwing and kicking sand, and using the angle of the light with the angle of the dunes, and some sophisticated moves to make my first pictures of those kind. And I managed to do a couple of dozens of pretty cool pictures. But then I had to get back to the airport. My book was already flight, and went back to Vienna. And seeing those pictures on the computer, I thought this could be really something, but only if I immediately go back and stay there for weeks to have the time to really do a body of work. Because the process of making these pictures also has some kind of randomness, and it's trying to get it to get the sand to have this certain shape, or you discover a shape and you want to carve it out even more. So it takes just a lot of time. So just 1 week later, I was back on a flight to Morocco, and stayed for several weeks in a tent in the desert, in the dunes, and did these photos every day for weeks. Every day in the morning for 2 or 3 hours, and in the evening or in the late afternoon. In between, just food, sleeping, and it was really an intense and very meditative time.
So you were shooting these in a tent, or
No, it's outside. It's outside.
Okay.
I was just sleeping in one of those camps. They have these camps out of tents there, and yeah.
What are those?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about those camps?
No, there are on the border of the desert. There are tent camps where tourists come and go, and usually they do like camel riding and driving with a jeep or something like that. And I would just and they usually stay like 1 night or 2 nights, having a dinner and some drum circle and the fireplace or something like that. But I just stayed in one of those tents for 3 weeks at the first time I went there.
And sorry, you probably said already, but where were these camps located?
It's Ouarzazate in Morocco.
Oh, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That sounds dope. Yeah, I've yet to do one of those like desert trips where there's sand dunes. So is the camp kind of surrounded by a lot of sand dunes?
Yeah, it's like really in the middle of so they take you, usually they take you with a jeep for half an hour right into the dunes. And it's super quiet. Like in the night, there's no sound. There's really no sound. Especially also because there are no trees or no branches and no grass or something, nothing that would move in the wind. So it's really, there's no sound. It's really totally quiet. It's, I think, the strongest thing about the desert, actually. It's not only like it's dry or hot or something like that, but it's really still. And the night sky is amazing.
That's really cool. Was there any good food there too?
Yeah, they have. They usually make a tagine. I don't know if you know this. It's actually it's you have to imagine it's like a pottery, a deep pottery plate with a dome out of pottery, and you put a lot of stuff inside. Usually it's some meat. It's like lamb and vegetables, and then and a lot of olive oil, and then you close the dome. You have like this plate. I could give me 1 second. I'll get one.
Okay, awesome.
So
Sweet.
this is a tagine. So you would fill this up with meat and vegetables and stuff, maybe some rice or something, and then you close this, and then you directly put this on a fireplace, and then it stays for 1 2 hours or something, and it's really nicely cooked. This is like the most traditional. This is the Moroccan food. This is what they eat all the time there. It could
Nice.
be
Did you get that when you were there? Is that sort of
a souvenir, yeah.
a souvenir?
But I use it. I still use it. You can put it in the oven or put it on a gas stove or something like that.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And you said it was like lamb mostly, lamb and vegetables?
Yeah. For lamb, it's a little bit more expensive there, but usually it's a lot of goat.
Goat. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
But also in Morocco, there you have a lot of snail. You have snails, stuff like this. Not the big.
I've had them, yeah, and I think when I was in France, yeah, I had some snails. I don't even remember what I thought about them. I guess they tasted salty. I remember.
Yeah, they're cooked usually in salty water, but they're basically like mussels or something like this. It's basically the same thing.
Mhm.
It'll be quite good, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, that's really cool. Silicone-based creatures. That's what when we met on Clubhouse stood out to me when I looked at your work. I was just like, wow, I've never really seen anything quite like that. So is that the night sky in the background?
No,
Like
it's just the darkness. It's just the floor. It's not the floor. It's just the ground in the desert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to explain. It's just the angle of the light really fits exactly to, yeah.
Cool. And so what did you do before that? You mentioned India, right? That you did some work in India.
Yeah, I traveled in India with a motorbike, and I think I was the most impressed. I was from Varanasi. I think you know the city. It's a city where they burn the dead people on the side of the Ganges River.
Oh, yeah,
I
I've
think
heard of
it's quite
that.
famous, and it's a 5,000-year-old city. and you can really feel that and see that. It's a lot of old temples halfway sunken in the river. It's basically only temples there, I guess. And the sadhus, the holy people from India, they go there to die, basically. So it's like if you die in Varanasi and you're burned and cremated at the side of the river, it's like a shortcut to nirvana for them.
Oh, yeah. So it's someone on Clubhouse was actually started talking about that town. It's the oldest
It's
city,
one of the
right?
oldest towns probably
Yeah.
in India, yes.
Yeah, and he started talking about that, and he was on this like Grant Cardone, the guy that's like a sales guy that does he have you heard of this guy? He sells like I think real estate and books and stuff. Was hosting this room with hundreds of people,
Okay.
and this guy starts talking about this town, and he mentions like that they burn bodies on the side of the river, and they were all like, "Whoa, whoa!" Like they all freaked out, and they banned the person because
Really?
they thought he was trolling them or something. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's some there's places in the world where they do things differently than we do in the Western world.
Yeah, I think in
Um,
the Western world, a lot of stuff is just put away. Like ugly stuff is just put away, put down, so that we don't have to speak about it, don't think about it, don't see it. But for
yeah,
some other cultures, life and death is just like part of the game. It's just coming is exactly important as going.
right.
And it had some me as a Western European person or Middle European person. It was in the beginning. It was also quite strange. So there was one night I was walking around with a Swedish woman, and it was quite cold. I think it was in January or February or something like this. So it was quite cold at night. And we were wandering around and drinking this bang lassi. I don't know if you know this. It's like a milkshake with cannabis.
Oh no, so I've had lassies before, but I haven't had one with cannabis.
Yeah, it's called bang lassi.
Okay.
And walking around the city, and then we came to one of those cremation places, and we stood there and watched how they like casually burned those bodies, and then we at some time we realized, oh my God, we're standing here for quite a time, and probably we're standing here because it's warm. And this is what people in the evening do. They stand there and watch those cremations, and it's warm, so it's really it's intense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's definitely uncomfortable to talk about though, because I guess I'm just not, as a Westerner, I'm less accustomed to, people tend to avoid that topic. So it's one of those
Yeah.
things where I'm just like, it's almost like it's really interesting, but at the same time, I'm like afraid of. I found myself being afraid of like making comments because I'm like, man, it's like that topic is so. I don't want to say sacred, but it's such like an edgy topic, like when you're talking about like,
For Westerners, of course, it is. For
yeah,
Westerners, it's where, yeah. But I think this is just part of the culture. It's probably
yeah,
the Christianity still speaking out of the Western culture, just to avoid negative stuff or difficult stuff. But
sure,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
So the
What about
India, the culture in India, it's very old and it's very ripe. I would say, it's you just
raw? Yeah,
you just see there's a lot of it's also like the poor people in the streets. If you see a beggar or a poor person in New York City, no one cares about that person, and no one wants to talk to them or touch them or be close to them. But in India, it's part of the philosophy that the rich people acknowledge that they're only rich because someone else is poor.
mm,
And if everyone would be rich, there would be no difference. So it brings luck to spend time with the poor people and to give them food at least or something. So the poor people in India are sometimes better seen as a person than in the Western culture, because in the Western culture, in New York City, no one cares about a homeless man,
mm.
and they probably, when it's too cold, they die on the streets.
Mm.
So, uh,
Yeah, I used to do this more often, but the times I've gone to like a soup kitchen and volunteered there, it was always a super rewarding experience. It's been way too long since I've done it. It's probably been, I don't know how many years, but it's been a really long time. But just going to, I think the last time I did it was in Anchorage, Alaska. And just basically going to a soup kitchen where they feed homeless people and going and helping cook because I have a background in cooking, and so I literally was just, I think, dicing onions, but just I was just back in the kitchen. But the whole experience was really rewarding. It was different than, like for, I think work is rewarding if you're doing what you love and you're working hard at it. There's reward there, but this was like a different type, a totally different type of reward. It just felt it's like it scratched an itch that was totally different than other kinds of work. It was like something very deep down was, I think, being fed by me, like chopping up these onions that were going to be used in this food for the homeless. And like, yeah, I should do that more because it's been way too long since I've done it. But yeah, there's something about that sort of thing where, yeah, it should be more common for sure. And I think especially in the Western world, we often sort of push that stuff into, we want to maybe take care of it with our taxes and not think about it
yeah,
or something,
yeah.
like, oh, some of my taxes
Not to
are going
get,
towards that.
we don't want to get too personal with stuff like this.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it's beneficial for, I mean, I think in a way it's almost like you could even do it for selfish reasons, because I found helping people out, it has that a really rewarding effect. So you're helping them out and it helps you out too, because it
Sure,
feels
yeah.
good to do it. So yeah, I think there should definitely be more of that. And especially in a place like New York, there is this disconnect between, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a disconnect between like, someone on the street versus someone going to work and driving in their car and going back home. But there's also a disconnect just between people in general. No matter what there's just, in general, people are just kind of ignoring each other in public, getting from point A to point B. And this is something I've discussed with previous guests. So I was talking about this with James Traley. He's an artist, amazing 3D artist. And we were talking about this phenomenon where basically like it does seem like a lot of times in big cities, maybe mainly in the Western world, I don't know. There's this, everyone's got somewhere to be, and there's often a disconnect between people's lives. Like people are just trying not to connect when they walk by. They're just, I don't know what causes it. I don't know if it's the fact that historically humans were grouped into smaller groups, like maybe it was a few hundred people in a tribe or something. And now when you've got these cities with many thousands of people, with millions of people, that there's almost, it doesn't work or something. Like people just don't, it doesn't function, or they don't automatically
Yeah, and also
want to reach out to
probably
everyone.
in a big city, you can choose your tribe. You can choose
Mhm.
the people you want to spend time with and exchange goods or information or kindness or whatever.
Yeah.
And let's say for most of the time, where humans were in smaller villages or groups, there were just like let's say 100 or 200 people, and you would know all of them and you would have to get along with them. And I think this is something that still works well in rural areas, but in
Mhm.
cities, yeah, we are quite disconnected. And so the rich people will group together with rich people, and I don't know, the rock music people will go with rock music people, and the hip hop people will go, you find your tribe.
Right.
And, and it's,
Yeah, and there is something to be said about that. The fact that you can, like, let's say you might even be from a small town where people are really well connected, but you didn't actually find your tribe in that small town. So sometimes people actually go to the big city, and it really works out for them to find the tribe that's actually has similar interests to them, that sort of thing. What I found as someone who grew up in the South in Tennessee is that there it was almost like you automatically, like, you would talk to someone on the sidewalk, they'd say, how's it going? Afternoon, and if you're in line somewhere, maybe you're just going to talk because why wouldn't you? It's just people there in the same place, small town vibe. But yeah, I mean, something about New York, for example, and maybe it's also just the traditions of New York to some extent. It's just gotten more and more that way because it's so normal. So people move here and maybe they move from a small town, but they got enough weird looks from someone when they said, "Hey, how's it going?" that they just stopped trying to reach out. And yeah, it's definitely too bad. But yeah, to your point, like you can definitely find your tribe, and I think one thing that's important that I think some people have been discovering in the like because of COVID, like the eating at home can actually be a good way to connect. So like, being safe, of course, but like let's say you have neighbors that you never talked to or connected with in the past. Like maybe you're spending more time at home, so maybe you're seeing your neighbors more. I know that I did. I know that I've seen my neighbors more. One time I actually locked myself out of my apartment, and I got help from multiple neighbors. So yeah, I was taking the recycling out, and to like there's like a garbage chute, and then right next to it there's the recycling bin. And so I took the recycling. Thankfully I was wearing shoes for some reason. I don't know why I was wearing shoes, but because usually I walk barefoot in my apartment. And then I just realized that the door shut behind me, and it locks automatically for some reason. And so I have no keys, no phone, no wallet. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm screwed. Like this, so I knocked on a few doors, and no one answered but then one door someone answered. They let me borrow their phone. They were like, oh, that sucks, I've been there. And I what was I doing? Oh, and then I was trying to call the super, right? That I was trying to call the super of the building to try to get them to unlock it. And then I ran into someone in the elevator, and they let me borrow their Metro card. And so I actually used their Metro card to go. My girlfriend was at work, and she had keys. So I went in because I didn't have any money, right? So my neighbor let me borrow their Metro card. I hopped in the subway, um, and actually I had to hop on the subway with no mask because I had no money, no mask, no anything. Like, so that was fun. I just avoided people on the train. I could tell everyone was like glaring at me because yeah, for obvious reasons. And I was like, trying to cover myself with my shirt. And then when I got to get my keys, it was like I finally, and then I went back. But anyway, it was really cool actually. It forced me to talk to my neighbors, and actually them helping me out. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like they helped me out. That it just feels nice knowing that I have multiple neighbors that are willing. And the Metro card that she let me borrow, it's like has 128. It's like the unlimited one, so it's like $128 worth of like it costs $128. So she was willing to like lend that to me and trusted that I would bring it
I mean,
back.
she knows where you're living, so.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's funny. Like that experience forced me to interact more with my neighbors, and I need to do more of that because I think a lot of people don't in New York, and it's something that I'm intent on changing, at least in my small circle. But what about you? So are you living in Austria right now?
Yeah, in Vienna, Austria.
Vienna. Okay, cool. What kind of setup is that? Are you like in an apartment, or is it more of like a
Yeah,
brownstone or
like
house?
the most houses in Vienna are built like around, let's say, in 1850 to 1930 something, and people prefer to live in the older houses, which
Mm.
are built before the Second World War, and they're really nice. We have really high ceilings, um, and everything is like it's like really it's antique. Um, and of course, there are modern buildings as well, but most of the houses in the inner city are at least 100 years old, 150 years old. Wooden
Wow.
floors and stuff like this. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a similar thing in New York. There's pre-war buildings, and a lot of times people prefer those. They tend to be built very well. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of new construction. So you kind of take what you can get though, because obviously rent in New York is just insane. So
Yes.
I'm pretty happy with my place, but it's in Brooklyn. If you were going to be in Manhattan, you definitely end up spending just insane amounts for any amount of space, for sure. And some people were saying it was going to change, or that it was changing because of the pandemic, like that everything was getting cheaper. And I looked at the prices, I'm like, it's not that different. I mean, which makes sense because if the landlords, like, let's say, cut rent in half, then basically they can't raise rent but a tiny percentage each year. So if they had a tenant and the rent was like half the price, but then New York got busy again, they would be, I believe they'd be stuck at that like lower rent for a long time. So I get it. They're trying to keep their property values up, and so it's just business. But yeah. Um,
But also here, the property prices are steadily rising. It's every year it's more expensive to stay.
I
But I
bet.
think it's far better than in New York here. This is also why Vienna has this high living standard because it's really affordable. So I'm living on it's 80 square meters, so which is I think it should be on the 240 square feet as a single person. It's two big rooms and a smaller room and a bath, kitchen, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been good at that math. Plus, half the time in New York, it's not true. Like they'll say it's however many hundred square feet, and then the math's not done correctly. So I have no concept of. So speaking, you said two and a half, two big rooms, one small room. Is that what you
Yeah,
said? Yeah, that makes sense in my brain more than the the
yeah.
square feet. But yeah, cool. What have you had any really good experiences with like dinners, like whether when it was when you were traveling or like someone invited you to have dinner with them? I know you mentioned in Morocco with
I think the
the
best food in the whole world you find in Japan.
okay.
Yeah, it's really. I think people in Europe or probably in the US too, if they think about Japanese food, they think about sushi.
Sure.
But this is only a small part of Japanese food. And if you eat real Japanese food, you will have a plate where there's a lot of different dishes, and one or two or three pieces of sushi or sashimi is just one part of that menu. But it's so sophisticated, it's so well, well done in every way, and it's also so balanced from the nutritionist wise. So I think it's a really highly involved culture of eating in Japan. So I think that's the best food I had in my life. I think like the Arabic food in Morocco is just suited for the hardships of the desert. It's like
Mm.
a lot of fat and protein, so that it's just more about the energy, I think, and or
Mhm.
what they just have there. It's like beans or chicken beans and something like this. Um,
So what's your
but yeah,
favorite in Japan? What's your favorite dish?
I had some how do you say this this wooden sticks that are grilled with meat. I don't know the English word. It's just a stick. Uh,
Yeah, I can't remember, but I know what you're talking about. It's
yeah,
like wooden
with
skewer,
chicken
and
neck.
it's
Yeah, with the meat of chicken neck,
I'm gonna
and this
Google
was
it.
really the best meat I've ever eaten.
Yakitori, yakitori, right?
I guess, yeah. And this was really good. So, but and also I was at this fish market and I had a piece of the best available tuna raw, and it was like just like butter in your mouth. It's just melting.
Mm.
It's quite expensive. I think it would be one bite would be $10, but it's the best. the best fish I've ever eaten in my life. I'm probably, I don't know if I ever gonna have such a good fish again.
And where was that?
In the fish market in Tokyo.
Okay. I was just said start. You were just literally walking around the fish market, and there
No,
was like a.
I got to know a sushi chef,
Oh,
and
okay.
he walked me for one afternoon. He walked me around the fish market and showed me all the real good stuff, like
Oh,
sea urchin.
wow, that's a great
uh,
connection.
Yeah, yeah. We connected. He's the owner of a restaurant, and I was eating basically every day there. And I gave him one of a sweater I designed, and in exchange he walked me through the sushi market.
Good trade. That's awesome. Um, was part of your trip there related to photography at all?
Yeah, only I went to Japan to take photos. Yeah, I travel only to take photos actually,
Hmm.
or maybe I have an exhibition like in Hong Kong, and I have this exhibition, and then I just travel around and take photos. But it's
And is it?
basically
It's normally like street photography when you go
it's
to
a lot of
somewhere like that.
yeah. If I'm in a city, it's probably street photography. If I'm more in the countryside, it's a lot of landscape or I don't know, random stuff. I can't tell.
Yeah.
It's when I
Um,
see it, I'll take a photo.
what's a really good like or crazy experience you've had? Because I actually I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I used to, well, I technically am still a photographer, but I don't do much of it anymore. I used to be more into photography, and for a while I was toying with street photography, and it was definitely interesting to see how people would react, right? So like just taking pictures of someone with a professional camera, they a lot of times they're kind of caught off guard, or you get a really interesting, funny look on someone's face, or something interesting happens. So what's something I'm curious if anything really funny or crazy or interesting has happened to you while just interacting with people when you've
I think it's
done
it's
street photography.
with street photography. So I think I have to go back to Varanasi in India because I really it changed the way I do street photography or portray of people. When I went to Varanasi on the first day, I saw a lot of tourists with the big long lenses standing on some wall and like sniping the portraits out of the crowd. And I thought I'm not going to do that, like steal the photos just with a long lens, without asking the people to if I could take the picture. And
Mm.
and when I was walking around, I found a sadhu, which is one of those holy men in Varanasi. He was sitting on the side of the river with a group of people around him, and I think he was interesting, and I would wanted to take a photo of him, but I just had this experience where I thought I need to get more involved with the people before I take a photo of them and get closer to the person and to the situation. So on the first day, I just sat with them because it's for Indian people, it's something that brings you good karma to sit with those holy people. And I just sat there for 1 or 2 hours. And on the next day, I came again, and it was quite cold still. And I noticed that they didn't have a lot of firewood anymore. So I went to a place and got some firewood and gave them some firewood and sat again for some hours. And they were constantly smoking hashish through these stone pipes. And on the next day and the third day, I came and I bought them like a big piece of hashish, and then we all together smoked the hash. And only on the third day visiting him, on the day after, I was again sitting with them, and then I stood up in front of him, took my camera out of the bag, and like showed him that I have a camera. And he looked up to me and he gave me a nod, like yes, okay. And this was when I took one of my most important portraits I've ever did. And it's a really beautiful photo. And I know I was giving this photo because the
Mm.
person knew that I engaged with him, and I showed respect, and he was like willingly giving me that photo. And from this day on, I never secretly took photos of anyone on the street. So a lot of people say that's a pity because you lose a lot of good photos that could have been an opportunity because someone doesn't notice you as a photographer. But yeah, but then again, there are a lot of some photos you might lose if you ask beforehand. But yeah, I think it's still, especially in time of internet and social media, everyone in the world now has an internet social media account, and you cannot just like 30 years ago take a photo and put it on National Geographic and the person will never see their photo anywhere.
Sure.
Now probably even the facial recognition software will find themselves, or it will pop up, hey, there's a photo of you.
Facebook will tell them, hey, do you want to tag yourself in this photo?
And so I think today there should be a consent between photographer and the model or talent or face or whatever.
That makes sense. And it sounds like you got a really good experience out of forming that connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and this is a great photo, and I have my story with it, and it's not just like it's not stolen.
which one is that? Where can I find the photo you're talking about?
Are you on my webpage, or where are you? On Instagram or?
I have both up. But yeah, if there's a easy way for me to just know which.
So
travel.
on the homepage, let me see. It's a black and white.
Oh, I might see it. Does he have a hat?
No.
Oh.
Wait. Give me a second. It's this one. Wait.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I put these photos we're talking about up just for a few seconds when just so people can see what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. In my travels, I've found that connecting with strangers is probably the best part of it. So Cuba, for example, there was definitely good food there, for sure. I'm really into food and I'm into cigars. So I was way more into cigars back then. So there's definitely lots to enjoy. But, and then, I mean, it's beautiful in Cuba too. But I would say getting to know the people was probably the biggest takeaway for me, the part that had the biggest impact.
I think this is especially true if you travel alone. I think if you're in a group with people, you're still like bringing a piece of your home environment to another country. But if you're really alone, everyone will be totally open towards you. They want
to pull you into their world.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I prefer traveling alone typically for that reason.
I travel alone.
Yeah. And I've traveled. So in Cuba, I met an American couple on the plane, and then I met this French lady, and then we were basically hanging out as a group for a few days. So we were in Havana, and then we ended up going to Viñales with the beautiful valleys there. And what I found, I enjoyed spending time with these people, but I found the times when I really connected with the Cuban people was when I was alone, whether it was with.
Yeah, because I think also when you're coming as from a first world country to a third world, or I don't know, something in between, if you're again a group of like French and American or whatever people, you're still like white privileged people in a poor country with your dollars, and you're seen as a group of intruders or something like that. But
like
if you're
just invasive tourists, kind of at that point.
But if you're alone, you make yourself vulnerable. They could easily like jump you or whatever, and so I think it shows that you trust, and it shows that you give yourself into the situation. And I think last year, like exactly 1 year ago, I was traveling for some weeks through Morocco with a motorbike through the deep countryside. And I really saw how open those people are, because usually the motorbikers, they see they're like groups of BMW driving Germans or whatever, just waving around with the euros, with the money. Um, and seeing just one solo guy traveling around in an old rusty motorbike, or what seems to be, it's just like I'm going into their world, and I'm taking the risk of, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna need their help, or I'm gonna have to stay at their place. And everywhere in the countryside they would have offered me to sleep at their houses. And
Mm.
this is because you're showing that you're valuing and you're respecting their culture and their land, and you abide to their rules. And I think this is really important, to have a connection and not to go into another country with your with the money and the power of the first world in you, behind your back, so
Sure.
it's really difficult to find, as a person from the first world, to find a approach to how to be in poorer countries or less developed countries.
Right. And yeah, and I would recommend it for sure to anyone. I think a lot of people travel with other people and it's fine, right? That's great, but I would recommend that people try it at least once. Like, go if there's a try to go to a new place, just be alone, try to meet the people, because I do think it's a totally different dynamic, and I was noticing it in I would yeah. So in France too, like when I was in Paris, I knew people in Paris. They would introduce me to their friends. That was great. Group of people who were familiar with each other and trust each other. But when I was alone and I went to say Saint Malo, um, then I had more moments where I was like lonely and didn't have like those friends to fall back on. But when I would go to the pub or something, or go to a restaurant, it was much more likely that I'd strike up conversation with somebody, and that I'd actually make new connections and have like interesting new experiences. Um, because when you're with other people that you're used to, you're sort of in your own world with them, right? And they don't feel, other people in the room or in the area don't feel as connected to you, because you're sort of in your own world, with your friends or with whoever you're with. So yeah, I highly recommend it to
Yeah,
just try
but
travel.
and it's also interesting if you're in a country where you don't speak the language, and they don't speak your language. Even without words, just with gestures and smiles, you can communicate a lot. And it's just like, this is food,
Yeah,
and this is sleep, and you will get along. You will find your way through everything. So yeah. I
yeah,
would really like to go more into Africa, but I have a big respect to go into African countries. I think probably not. It's. I think it's. I could do it. I think the next thing, because I'm really interested in Africa, but I was only like in South Africa, which is culturally not really Africa. It's an European or Western country, and I was
yeah.
in Morocco, and this is probably more an Arabic country. In Northern Africa, it's something else. But I would really like to drive my motorbike from Egypt to South Africa on the East Coast.
Wow, yeah,
That
that
would
would
be
do it.
really,
That would be crazy. You should do it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But let's see until when the COVID virus will be, I don't know, in control. We will take some time, I guess, next year probably.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's at the beginning of the pandemic. I thought, oh, this will be over before summer, or something. I just thought like, oh, it would be like a flu season or something, and
I was
it'll
actually
be.
last year. I was in San Francisco, and I last year had an exhibition in San Francisco with my silicon-based creatures. And 3 days before the opening of the exhibition, there was a lockdown, and I had to go back to
Oh my
Austria.
God. Oh man,
It was
that
quite hard there.
sucks.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, it opened anyways, but without me being there. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that really sucks. Yeah. I will say, I'm curious if you found any positives in the pandemic. Because for me, I'll say for me, like I found that because I'm at home more, I started focusing more on thinking internally. You know, what's important to me. I've been cooking more. I've been more, I would say, meditative. I don't know if that's the right word, but just sort of, stewing in my own
Yeah.
brain
I
more
think
and just
I really enjoyed not having. Um, Usually, there's a lot of parties or a lot of stuff going on, and you should go there and meet those people and whatever. Don't the fear of missing out just
yeah,
went away.
FOMO. Yeah.
Yeah, because now there's nothing to miss out, so you can like chill at home, and I think the first weeks were quite a shock. You didn't know what to do, and then the first month were probably, I don't know, you just didn't know what you could do, and you were just hanging around, and people were watching Netflix all the time or whatever. But then I really started to work on archived projects, like when I do a 1 month travel through Morocco, I make hundreds of pictures, and I probably only edited like I don't know, like 20 or something. And there's so much more to work on, and so I found the time to work on projects. I started a new project which isn't ready yet, so it's not published yet. So I did a lot of work on that. And also, yes, it's about cooking. Yeah, I'm eating much more healthy now. I don't order food. I don't go out for food. I cook every day, and yeah, actually, um, I like introspective very much. So for me, it helps. So the first half year, I mean, now we're in Austria here. We're still in lockdown. We're not allowed actually to meet people still. The bars, restaurants are all not open. Everything that's cultural is not open. So now it's starting to drag a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's not looking like until Easter we still will have lockdown. So yeah, it's starting to be quite difficult now, I think, because people really need to see other people.
Right.
I don't know, the young people need to date other people. There's it's just it's more than a year. It's starting to be a year now, so it's a little bit extreme at some point, and we will have to find ways to, I don't know, get around this. And also, Europe really messed up with the vaccines. So
Oh,
because the
really?
US, especially US and the UK, they just paid more per vaccine dose, and so they have now enough vaccines. And Europe, they didn't want to pay so much, and now they don't have enough vaccines. So for in the US, I think 10% of the population is already vaxxed, and in Europe, it's 2% on average.
Whoa. You
Yeah.
wouldn't guess that, right? If you had like someone who has assumptions about like America and about Europe, I feel like you would guess that the opposite would happen, right? That
Yeah, they
that
messed up. They just messed up. They didn't think that if some countries pay more per dose, that they just would be the last ones who get it. They thought they would get it anyway. I don't know what they were thinking.
Oh, okay. So it is a supply issue. Okay, I didn't know that
It's a
actually.
supply
Yeah.
issue, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then also, I think why Israel has such a high rate of vaccination is because they even pay more per doses.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I think like the I think in summer or in early fall, a lot of people will be vaxxed, and then it's starting to relax, and then let's see how it goes.
Mm. Yeah, I'd say for me, I've focused a lot more on my personal projects. I've been focusing more on Metavore, and I'm now launching that subscription box for all the five senses that's coming up. and I've been able to focus on these things because, I mean, I've still been working, mostly remotely, at an agency. I'm a creative director, and that's been pretty busy actually. I think because we do CGI, so a lot of the brands a lot of it's like cosmetic beauty, brands that would have traditionally done photo shoots, they weren't able to do photo shoots for a while. So, and we do photo shoots too, but we do CGI. That's one of the things we specialize in. And so we had, I think, a lot of that kind of work. So we were fortunate that we weren't really negatively impacted very much by the whole thing, which was kind of crazy. Couldn't have guessed that would happen. But so I've been pretty busy with that. But then when I'm not at work, before I probably would have been, I don't know, I would have felt like I need to go, FOMO, I felt like I had to go out in the city constantly, and it just meant that I had less free time to just do things at home, to get real work done. And so I think I focused. It's clearly made me focus more on my personal projects, which is fantastic. And then I've been cooking. I cook pretty much every night. There are times when I order in because we have our favorite delivery places now. Like there's an Indian place called Taj Masala, which we either get their tikka masala or their butter chicken, and that's like a guilty pleasure. And it's all, of course, way overpriced because anytime you get delivery, it's like insane, But we'll do that from time to time, and then we'll do just like kind of trashy takeout Chinese type food, like with Szechuan chicken and egg rolls and fried rice and that kind of stuff. But most nights, for sure, like probably, yeah, the vast majority of nights, I'm cooking dinner, doing like roast chicken or steak and a veggie and either bread or like potato based something for the carbs. And yeah, and I feel like that's how I'm supposed to live more. Like cooking at night. Well, part of it's because I'm into cooking. I guess if someone hates cooking, it would be a different story. But I feel like that's healthy, working, cooking,
Yeah,
and you're not
I
eating,
think there should go some effort into making your food, because actually the early humans would like have 90 or 80% of their day devoting to getting their food done, and now it's often maybe only 1% of your time.
Yeah, it's like a primal. I think there's something primal about it, something that hits right at the root of being human. I think to actually cook especially if you cook it over a flame. I have a grill that I've been using less and less because of the amount of preparation time it takes, because it's a charcoal grill. And when I cook something there, it just hits the spot. I mean, there's something about cooking over fire that just, I mean, it tastes amazing. It
I think
smells great.
we were doing this for 250,000 years or something like that. I actually have a theory about smoking and TV station. I think people were, for more than 200,000 years, every night they were sitting around the fire, which was a flickering light, and having the smell of smoke in their noses for 200,000 years. And coincidentally, the time when humans lost the contact to daily fire, they started to smoke. The smoking started to be a widespread phenomenon. It was like in the 1920s or something, when the electric ovens started to get into the households. But before that, people were having daily contact to smoke and fire. And I think smoking cigarettes and watching TV is just a replacement for every night sitting around the fire or by the fire, telling stories about how the day went and having that smell of smoke in your nose. And I can really imagine that this is some kind of compensation, actually.
That's a really interesting observation, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. There is something, yeah, we must have just grown to have positive reactions to smelling smoke over.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah,
the cigarettes have as well this nicotine thing.
yeah, of
I,
course.
I I just stopped smoking on New Year's Eve. So I'm smoke free for a little bit more than a month now, and I really know how addictive just nicotine is. It's a bad drug. It's really hard.
Mm.
But I still think this people love like looking into the fire. Imagine you're around the fireplace. You could look into the flames for hours. I think it's something like so deeply rooted into a human experience. It's something we
Totally.
should do more often, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I have so many memories just with people, and then it didn't even have to be with people, just staring into the fire and just thinking and just watching it flicker and
Mm,
looking at the little tiny twigs like falling when they burn and break, and just all of the crazy chaos that happens in the fireplace. And yeah, there's something really truly visceral about the experience. I know for me with the nicotine thing's interesting because I've been really into cigars. Now I'm not that into them anymore, meaning I don't really smoke cigars much. Like it's been months. For me, it was more like once a month or something, typically, or maybe a few. And it depends who I was with. Like if I was visiting family, like my dad was really into cigars, or I would meet people that were into them, and then when I was hanging out with them, it would be more often. But generally, it was pretty infrequent. And I find that kind of interesting. It seems like there are exceptions, but it seems like cigars, maybe because you're not inhaling them, you're just tasting them in your mouth. Like they don't tend to. I don't meet too many people that are like addicted to them. Now I've
yeah,
met people that
right.
smoke them every day, so you could argue that that person's maybe addicted. But it's weird. It's like a different thing for some reason.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
surely is. It surely is. Yeah, I think cigarettes, when you inhale it, it's just like you feel the nicotine flash, and it's super addictive.
Hmm.
Nicotine is as strong as like I don't know cocaine and sugar. It's something from in that order of brain activity.
Mm. Yeah, the sugar ones tough. Now I have found. I mean, I have always had a sweet tooth. Like I used to be. I mean, ice cream. I would just like. I couldn't eat just a little. It would be. I'd be eating the whole pint of ice cream. You know, the whole container. Um, I've found as I've gotten older, it's much easier for me to restrain myself with sweets because I think I've. It may be because I've tried so many different foods that my standards are really high. So if I have like let's say I'm at a restaurant and they give me free ice cream at the end. They're like, "Hey, try our interesting ice cream." Um, I might not even finish it, even if I have the appetite for it, because if it's not like super amazing, then I don't even want to waste the calories and the sugar like on this thing that's not that amazing. So that'll happen a lot where a lot of times the quality is just not there. So I just stop myself much more easily now from like eating way too much sugar. But that was definitely one of my biggest vices
Also,
for sure.
the thing with sugar is it's just that the human body is not adapted to eat that much sugar. I think we would find in earlier times we would find some fruits or we find honey once in a while, but usually we don't have any sugar. And this is why we are trained to, if we find sugar, to like devour it immediately.
Yeah.
And now there's sugar everywhere, and they put sugar everywhere into the drinks to get you to buy that stuff. And this is something I think that should be restricted, like alcohol or cigarettes are. I think this is like the humans are not capable of controlling themselves when it comes to sugar.
Mm, interesting. I
It
mean,
it
it
should
makes
be
sense.
more,
It's
it should be
similar
more
to.
like a drug, I guess, and not like a food.
It's kind of funny that say like cannabis is highly restricted in a lot of places, but even more than alcohol. And yet more people die from diabetes or have health problems from diabetes than people who have health problems from cannabis. So
Yeah, but I think the,
it's
the
like,
the cannabis thing was mainly there was this American marketing campaign. There was this one guy who had like really a crusade against cannabis, and he really and it also I heard something. It had something to do. It was cotton against hemp, Like it was just like a lobbying industry thing.
Oh, I don't know anything about that, but that makes
Yeah,
sense. I mean,
I think the
the
guys,
agricultural lobbies are really
I
strong
think the
in the
guys
U.S. Like,
who were for cotton, they wanted to restrict hemp because it was also good for fabrics. I don't know, something like that. And it is a lot of stuff. There was personal crusade against cannabis, and there was also a bit of racism, I think, because it was like the black drug, I guess, in the
I think
in
I think it was more, if I remember, it might have been more against Latinos at first.
I'm
I
not.
think.
I don't know exactly, but I think it was in the jazz culture as well. It was common, or in the music.
Right. Yep.
I might
It was
say,
probably both. It was probably both. Yeah.
yeah, I might imprecise here, but I think there's a in Amer I think it started in America, and there was a lot of there was some reasons why they started. It could have been alcohol as well, and you know they tried it with alcohol, you know, and it didn't work out so well. You know, it
Yeah. They
just made
just invented like organized crime basically
yeah.
by by doing the yeah.
And
So
today we
yeah.
have with I don't know cocaine and heroin. It's a war on drugs. It doesn't work out as well. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's yeah, it's interesting because there's this desire to protect people, right? And which, I think there's an honorable intentions there, but there's so many times when when the intention is actually that doesn't cause good results, but a lot of people think that it does. So they think I have this good intention, I want fewer people to die from this thing, therefore I'm going to
Yeah, but
restrict
I
that.
think it's always a problem if you think you can change the world by revolution and not by evolution. So if
Mm,
you now try to forbid some substance or anything, it won't work from one day to the other that people will change and don't crave this. The only thing what you can do is by evolution, like educate people or give them other choices and opportunities. But if you just forbid something, it won't change the people. And so I think it's with alcohol or cigarettes or whatever. You cannot just forbid it. You need to find another offering, something that fills the gap.
that makes sense. I have a question that I usually ask guests. I know you mentioned Japanese food and other places, but what's actually your favorite? What's your guilty pleasure food? It could be from anywhere in the world. It could be
Schnitzel.
schnitzel. Okay.
You know how schnitzel, how to do, how this works? Wiener
I think
Schnitzel.
so, yeah. I've had schnitzel, but not. Okay,
It's
so it's fried. Is it any meat?
it's no the original one that is veal.
Well, veal's delicious. So.
But most people also in Austria eat it from pork.
Okay.
But
That
actually, it's veal, and it needs to be like really thin and really crispy. And you would eat it with a potato salad.
is that like a cold, like kind of like American potato salad? Is it like a
It's
cold?
without mayonnaise. It's no mayonnaise
Okay.
inside, but it's cold. Yeah, the mayonnaise, potato salad is cold. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is this potato salad, is that an Austrian thing or is it?
I think you will find it also in yeah, it's quite a yeah, I think the whole thing Austria doesn't really have their own culture. It's also it's a mixture of, you know, the schnitzel, which is the most famous food from Austria. It's actually I think from Italy, you know, and
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And
But it's
is that with beer usually?
sorry?
Is that with beer usually? If you have schnitzel and potato salad, are you drinking beer with it?
I don't drink beer, but people do, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you don't drink alcohol at all or?
I didn't drink alcohol for more than 4 years, but I drink white wine sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, in Vienna, in Austria, white wine is the thing, I guess.
Was
We
that
have,
like a preference or was it like a life choice or?
no, I think white wine in Austria. We have good white wine, but we don't have excellent red wine. You know, And the French and the Italian people, they have excellent red wine. That's why they drink red wine. It's just like,
I drink a lot of white wine. I find that it's much easier to get white wine here too. That's good. Whereas if I get red wine, I'm rolling the dice. It could be very, just kind of like vinegary tasting.
I
or
think
kind of,
in the US, the Californian wine is very good.
and I've had very good wine. It's like if I was gonna bet my money whether I would like someone put out 10 red wines and 10 white wines, and they say like you get $100 if you pick the wine that you're gonna like. I would reach for a white wine because
probably.
even though I've had amazing red wine, the chances are that I'm
And
gonna
there's something a typical drink in Austria in summer is it's called Weißer Spritzer. It's like sparkling white. It's white wine with soda water. Like 50-50. It's like this is what people drink here a lot.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't just have sparkling wine?
Because I think it's just I think it comes from the people. You know, it's what you do would drink every day. Sparkling wine is more for festivities or something. It's more premium. You know, and
Gotcha.
no. I think it's for one thing. It's just if it's in summer, if it's hot, it's just smart to drink the wine a little bit more watery, and the sparkling makes it just more fresh. And also, you don't get headaches so easily if you drink enough water with it.
That makes sense. Yeah, it sounds like it'd be really refreshing too, because it wouldn't be a strong wine flavor. It would be like a nice, refreshing, watered down drink. So yeah, okay. What's that called again?
The German word is Weißer Spritzer, which translates to white sparkler or sparkling. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
You just take a white wine and put 50% sparkling water inside.
Do you have any public sparkling water like France does? Because they have some of these.
We have quite some in Austria. They are famous in Austria because they are really. I don't know. There are some wells. They have been used by the Romans 2,000 years ago as well. So there is, yes, but it's not. We are not selling it, I guess, internationally as big.
Is it so? It's like a public, like a fountain that you can get it from, or are you just saying it?
Yeah, in the town where it's from, there is even a fountain. Yeah, you can swim in it. There's a bath as well.
Wait, it's carbonated though?
It has a little bit of yeah, but if you buy the product you buy has extra carbonation.
Okay, cool. What's that place or spring called?
Bad Vöslau.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's in the south of Vienna. It's in the south of Vienna.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
You know that in Vienna and the south of Vienna actually is on a volcanic fault line.
Oh.
So it has in this city in this area where this sparkling water is from, sometimes it smells like rotten eggs, you know, from the sulfur.
Yeah.
From the sulfur
Huh. Yeah, I find those naturally sparkling springs and public sparkling water fountains really interesting because I'm obsessed with. I drink. I mean, I have sparkling water right now. This one's lime flavored, which I don't actually like. I prefer it to be plain, but they're always out. I go to Trader Joe's, a grocery store we have, and they're always out of the plain. So I'm stuck drinking lime flavor, which is okay. But I was amazed in France. I think it was in Cannes, and there was a park with just this like stone water fountain thing where you could either put a water bottle or drink from it. And it was sparkling water, and it was super carbonated. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And it was cold.
But in Vienna, the tap water is amazing in Vienna because we have two pipelines from the high Alps coming directly into the city. So the tap water in Vienna is probably better than the water you can buy in New York.
Okay. Yeah. So That's it. I didn't know that. Sounds delicious. New
Yeah,
York,
you have to research the water supply of Vienna.
I will.
Yeah.
I will say though, like New York tap water is actually some of the best I've had because it comes from upstate. Like it also comes from the mountains, like the springs in New York. Um, and so like my family's from Tennessee and they visited, and I told them like, and their tap water is terrible because I've been over there. I mean, I grew up in Tennessee, and usually the tap water was okay, not great. And now their current house is just like the worst flavor ever for some reason. And they even have like a filtration system. But
Mhm.
I had them try the tap water and they were like, whoa, this is so good. Like there's something about, and some people actually say part of why the pizza is good in New York is because of the water.
That's
Um,
why the coffee in Vienna is famous.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now I'm totally open to the possibility that Vienna water tastes better than New York. But I will defend New York's tap water because at
Yeah.
least
It probably
compared.
also, if it comes from a real spring in the mountain, it's mostly good. I think it's just a lot of cities around the world. They have some water which is just drinkable because it's treated.
Yeah. Now, but is your water still treated though, right?
No,
Like
no,
not at all?
no.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. So they don't put anything in it
No, no, no.
at
It's
all.
really ice
Okay.
cold. It comes directly from the mountain.
Interesting. So, like, do you think that if someone visited and drank that, they could get sick because there's certain bacteria that live in
No,
it?
there is no bacteria
No. How?
because
How's there no bacteria?
it's coming directly ice cold from the mountains, and there isn't just no, to have
It's
bacteria.
always cold the whole time. Like,
Yeah, and also to have bacteria in the water, there need to be a certain like nutritious stuff in the water.
yeah.
Bacteria has to live from something. But if it's pure water with just minerals or something, there's nothing the bacteria could live from. And it's cold. It's like 4 degrees from the spring until to the city.
Okay, so maybe your water's better. That sounds better because you could definitely tell that the water's been treated in New York because it has. It comes to the city, but then they have like in a reservoir they add something to it to make sure that no bad bacteria grows in it. And so you can tell it's treated. But yeah, so I'll have to try water from the taps and is that Vienna or all of Austria?
Most of Austria have like really great water. There's only like in the northeast, there's some flat areas where they probably have groundwater. They pump up groundwater, but usually, so as soon as you're somewhere in the Alps, in the mountains, it's really really good water, and we have such abundance of water.
Yeah, okay. That's
But you
actually
have to see
weirdly the most
Austria
exciting
is
thing I've heard about
70,
Austria.
70 or 80% mountains. It's like it's only the east is a little bit flat, but it's Austria is basically mountains.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So it's funny, like that's so exciting to me for some reason, the water you're telling me about, because I think maybe it's because I'm into like food and drink and all that stuff so much, but it sounds like I would love that because I want basically what I want in my home is like I want champagne on tap, I want sparkling water on tap, I want the best like purest water on tap, and I just want like those substances that I love to just be right at my fingertips. So to have a sink that dispenses amazing I guess what is it, like melted ice caps or something, like is it
It
melted ice or is it a spring?
No, it's from a spring. If the water melts in the mountains, it takes it like 10,000 or 20,000 years to go through the mountains until it gets out of the spring. So it's old water, and yeah,
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I definitely need to go. Maybe 2022.
probably.
Maybe this stuff will all be over.
No, it's really something. It's really good.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming on. I know it's super late where you're at. What time is it?
Yeah, it's 3
Oh,
a.m.
oh no, man. Oh man. Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks so much for
No, no problem.
staying up late. Yeah. All right.
That was
Cool.
really nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much, Wolfgang. Where can people find your work?
On my homepage or Instagram, I think if you type in my name, maybe you can provide it. You will find my webpage with photography. You will find Instagram, Facebook page. I also have. There's the silicon-based creatures are quite prominent there.
Great.
Yeah, would love
So how do you
getting
pronounce your last name then? Because I'm not going to try pronouncing that.
Bohusch.
Bohusch. Okay,
Yeah.
so your Instagram is Wolfgang WOLFGANG underscore Bohusch BOHUSCH.
Yes,
Wolfgang
exactly.
underscore Bohusch. Bohusch. Is it Bohusch?
Wolfgang. I will say it once. Okay?
Wolfgang?
Wolfgang Bohusch.
Wolfgang Bohusch. I know
Yeah.
those. Okay, cool. And then your website is the same, but with no underscore.com.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I love your work, man. Especially silicone-based creatures. And can you give us a little sneak peek, like one word or hint into this next project you were talking about? Like little.
It has some similarities. It's also a very long process of trying and doing again and again a similar thing, and to finally get something where you don't, where it's again quite abstract. And yeah, but I don't want to say anymore.
No, that's enough. So do you feel yourself drifting more toward the abstract lately in general?
I think it's really interesting to, especially with the silicon-based creatures, what people like see in those basically random forms, and it tells me a lot about the subconsciousness of the people, and I think that's really interesting because people will see what they have in their minds, you know.
Yeah, like for me, I'd say number 2666. It looks kind of like an owl or an eagle, like swooping in to pick something up. And then I thought that number 3305 kind of looks like a jellyfish or
Yeah,
something. So
jellyfish, I get that often. Yeah, but
yeah,
sometimes people, some things, most people see the same thing like an animal or something, but sometimes I hear like the weirdest stuff what people see. But on Instagram or on Facebook, you get a lot of comments. And because often when I post one of those pictures, I'll ask in the caption, "What do you see?" And then people will write in the comments what they are seeing, and it's really funny.
yeah. One person said on your number 5150, they said jellyfish are so pretty. Like they just assumed it was a jellyfish.
Yeah. And one guy assumed that it's a 3D rendering because they're probably used to see something like this as a 3D rendering. So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I love that about abstract work. It just lets your imagination run wild. It's
Yeah.
kind of like reading a book. You know, if you read a book, it'll describe things a certain way, but the world you create is sort of up to you. And so I think when you leave those
Yeah.
spaces for people to explore in their mind, it's a lot of interesting stuff happens. Interesting. Well, thanks a
Okay.
lot. I'll let you get
Thank
to
you.
bed.
It was nice speaking to you, and
You too.
keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Looking forward to your next project. See ya.
Bye.